There's a secret buried beneath your obsession with getting everything just right. You were never supposed to hear this. But perfectionism is not your virtue. It's your cage, a beautifully engineered prison, built by your unconscious to keep you from stepping into something so terrifying, so absolute, that even your rational mind cannot name it. You think you're refining your work, fine-tuning the details, aiming higher than others. But what if I told you that every moment you spend trying to perfect one is a moment you spend hiding? Not from failure, but from success, from your own dormant power. The kind of power that burns through illusion and forces you to answer one question: what have I been running from all my life? Because here's what Carl Jung knew, and what the world works hard to bury under self-help slogans and productivity hacks. Perfectionism is not a mark of high standards. It's a mask, a defense, a disguise, and beneath that disguise, something ancient, something raw, something that changes the trajectory of a man's life once he confronts it. You're not addicted to excellence. You're addicted to safety. You've mistaken your obsession with details for discipline, when in truth it's a ritual that keeps you away from the edge, from your threshold, from initiation into who you really are. Because when a man meets his true power, there's no going back. No more excuses. No more preparing. No more waiting for the perfect plan. Just raw accountability. Cold, bone-deep responsibility. And this is what most men fear more than death. So tell me, what are you really afraid of? That you might fail? Or that you might succeed so violently, so undeniably, that you can never again pretend to be small? Jung didn't whisper this. He shouted it, in the language of archetypes, dreams, shadows, and yet still most never hear it. Or they hearing and run. But if you're still watching, you're not most men. And this is only the beginning. Keep watching. Because the next truth will make you question everything you thought was noble. Even your desire to be your best self. Now we descend. You were taught to polish, to refine, to wait until it's flawless before showing the world anything that carries your name. You were taught to fear the blemish more than the void. But what if I told you that instinct to endlessly prepare, perfect, and polish is not about excellence at all? It's about control. And deeper than that, it's about terror. The kind of terror that comes from knowing there is something within you that, once unleashed, could shatter the life you've built. Carl Jung called this your shadow, the part of you that holds not only your suppressed wounds but your dormant greatness. And here's the truth most men will never hear. Perfectionism isn't your highest self-talking. It's your fear dressed in your best suit. It's your ego, terrified that if you truly showed up in your full strength, not only would you be exposed, you'd have to live up to it every single day. You'd have to lead. You'd have to be watched. You'd have to become more than just another man in the crowd. And that level of being seen is what perfectionism was created to avoid. Understand this. Perfectionism is not about avoiding failure. It's about avoiding responsibility. The responsibility of power. The kind of responsibility that comes when a man stops apologizing for who he is, when he stops asking for permission to begin, when he stops fixing and starts building. You wait, because it feels safer to delay, to call yourself not ready instead of unwilling, to call yourself a planner instead of what you really are, a man standing on the edge of his calling, afraid to jump because he knows there's no coming back. That's the moment most shrink. That's the moment they go back to editing the email, tweaking the website, adjusting the angle of the lighting on a project that's been almost ready for years, but you're here. And that means something inside you already knows. You don't need more time. You don't need more polish. You don't need anyone's permission. You need to decide, right now. Who are you without your perfectionism? That's the question most men never ask. Because to answer it is to awaken the part of you they've worked your whole life to keep asleep. They taught you to fear failure, but they never warned you about the real threat, success. Not the watered-down version sold in self-help books or influencer videos, but true success, The kind that makes you unrecognizable to your former self. The kind that severs your ties with mediocrity forever. You see, failure is familiar. Society prepares you for it. There are scripts, safety nets, comforting words. But success? That's different. That's exile. Real success isolates. It demands. It exposes. And your perfectionism, that polished, socially acceptable obsession, is the armor you've been trained to wear so you never have to face the weight of your own potential. Jung knew this. He said the shadow doesn't just hide your darkness. It hides your greatness, your unclaimed leadership, your silenced voice, your untapped genius. The parts of you so raw, so electric that if they were released, they would burn down the small life you've been told to settle for. This is why you wait, why you edit endlessly, why you start over 1,000 times. Because something ancient in your psyche knows, once you let the real you speak, act, move, you will never be able to pretend again. And pretending has been your safety. You've mastered the mask. Perfectionist, planner, thinker, strategist, all of it designed to keep your hands clean while your soul withers in the background. But now you're here, and there's no turning away from this anymore. The truth is vibrating beneath your skin, isn't it? The realization that you were never meant to blend in, that all the years of waiting to be ready were camouflage, that perfectionism was never about high standards. It was about fear. And fear, when fed long enough, becomes identity. So let me ask you something dangerous. What would happen if you stopped waiting? What would you become if you gave up control? If you stepped into the chaos of your own power? What relationships would end? What illusions would shatter? What dreams would ignite? The answers are waiting in the place you've been taught to avoid, your shadow. And we're going there now, because only in the dark do you finally see who you are. The shadow isn't a metaphor. It's real. It's the buried vault of every part of you that society said was too much, too wild, too powerful to show. It's where your brilliance went to hide the moment you learned that being extraordinary makes you a target. Jung called it the unconscious twin of your persona, the mask you wear to be accepted, to be liked, to be safe. But while the persona keeps you polished on the outside, the shadow stores every truth you're too afraid to admit. And for the perfectionist, the shadow is filled not with chaos, but with terrifying potential, the kind that would rip your current life in half. You don't polish because you're weak. You polish because you're dangerous, because deep down you know, if you stopped fine-tuning and just released what you've been building, the impact would be seismic. And that kind of impact requires a different version of you, one who no longer seeks permission to be powerful. But power without integration is a weapon turned inward. That's why your shadow lashes out in quiet ways. Anxiety, paralysis, obsessive loops, sabotage that looks like productivity. Every time you say, "I just want it to be right," the shadow hears, "I'm still afraid of who I am." Because the shadow knows. It remembers the moments you dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel small. It remembers the ideas you buried so you wouldn't be judged. And it holds all of that, silently, waiting, until the day you're ready to reclaim it. But be warned, to open that vault is to kill the version of you that survived by pretending. That's why this is not motivational fluff, this is psychological warfare. And the enemy? The false self you've been perfecting all your life. Every moment of hesitation, every delay, every excuse was a pact you made with safety. But safety is not life. Safety is sedation. And you weren't built for sedation, you were built for initiation. So ask yourself now, not in theory but in bone-deep honesty, what has my perfectionism been protecting me from? And am I ready to face it, no matter what it destroys? Because make no mistake, once the door to the shadow is open, something must die. But in its place, something unbreakable is born. Welcome to the descent. You've been taught that perfectionism is about raising the bar. But that's a lie. It's not about elevation. It's about avoidance. Because deep down, you already know the truth. Your life isn't stalled because you're aiming too high. It's stalled because you're terrified of what you'd have to become if you actually moved. And here's the part no one says out loud. Success isn't a straight line. It's not neat. It's not clean. It's chaos. It's blood. It's the death of the false identities you built to survive. Carl Jung understood that the psyche doesn't evolve through comfort. It evolves through confrontation, and perfectionism is the ultimate delay tactic, a beautiful excuse to stay just shy of the confrontation that would force you to level up. Why do you think you procrastinate the moment something matters? Why do you tweak the font, rewrite the message, re-record the video, again and again? Because some part of you knows, the second you hit publish, the second you launch, the second you step out, the story changes. You can no longer claim you're not ready. You can no longer stay hidden. You can no longer deny that power lives in your bones. That's the terror behind perfectionism. Not that you'll fail, but that you'll be seen, truly seen. And once you're seen, you're responsible. Because now the world knows what you're capable of. And now you know. That's the haunting part. When you finally confront your shadow, you don't just see your pain, you see your potential. You see what you could have been if you had started earlier, risked more, stopped pretending. And that realization cuts deeper than any failure ever could. This is why so many men stay stuck at the gate, because to walk through it is to face everything they've delayed, abandoned, betrayed. But you're still watching, so I'll give it to you straight. The reason you haven't started is not because it's not ready. It's because you're not willing, yet, to give up the identity of the man who waits. But if you want what's next, that man has to die. Now ask yourself, am I finally ready to bury him? Or will I spend another year perfecting the coffin? The time for answers is over. The next step is blood. They won't tell you this in schools, not in therapy, not in the boardrooms or the self-help books. Because if they did, the system would crack. The entire machinery that feeds off your hesitation would collapse. You see, perfectionism isn't just personal, it's programmed. From the moment you could think, you were conditioned to associate your worth with performance. You were graded, ranked, evaluated, not for your power, but for your conformity. You were taught to delay your instincts, edit your voice, filter your truth, because raw power threatens order. Jung understood this perfectly. He said the individual who dares to break free from the collective illusion must face unimaginable resistance, from within and without. Why? Because power is contagious. One man who stops waiting infects others. And soon the whole illusion, the one that keeps men small, obedient, controlled, begins to unravel. That's why your perfectionism was never just yours. It was engineered, crafted by unseen forces that fear what would happen if you actually moved. Because a man who moves is a man who cannot be stopped. Think of how many systems benefit from your hesitation, industries that profit off your almost readiness, platforms that feed on your doubt, entire institutions built around your belief that you are not yet enough. Your perfectionism is not a quirk, it's the leash, and the second you cut it, you're no longer manageable. You're no longer marketable. You're no longer predictable. And that, my friend, is power. Real, ancient, sovereign power. The kind that can't be sold or scaled, only awakened. So here's the bitter truth. Your hesitation isn't just robbing you. It's feeding them. Every time you rewrite that draft, rework that plan, delay that launch, you're casting a vote for your own imprisonment. But once you see this, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize perfectionism as the parasite, not the protector, the only question left is, will you keep feeding it? Or will you let it starve? Decide. Because one more delay, one more excuse, one more almost, and they win. Again. And the man you were born to be? He dies a little more. Quietly, invisibly, but permanently. Unless you choose otherwise, right now. You've made it this far, which means something in you is stirring. Something ancient, something sovereign, something that doesn't bow. That's stirring. That's your power remembering itself. And it's not polite. It's not waiting for the right time. It doesn't care about polish or performance. It wants to break things. It wants to burn the false self to ash and drag the real you out of the wreckage. But there's still a war inside, isn't there? A war between the voice that says, "Go now," and the one that whispers, "Not yet." Let me be clear. The second voice is not yours. It's an echo. An inherited fear passed down from the generations of men who played small to stay safe. Jung called this the collective unconscious, a field of inherited wounds, buried truths, suppressed potential. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake that echo for intuition. You'll confuse fear with wisdom. You'll call paralysis preparation and never realize you're sleepwalking through your own life. But not today. Today, something is cracking. Your shadow is watching. Your unlived life is watching. And they're asking, will you choose us now or betray us again? Because here's the truth that no one dares to say. The longer you delay your power, the more violently it will come for you, in the form of rage, regret, addiction, anxiety, depression. These aren't disorders. These are signals, alarms from the parts of you you've caged in the name of being ready. But ready is a myth. You don't become ready by planning. You become ready by doing. You become ready by bleeding into the world and letting the consequences shape you. And right now, the world doesn't need another man who waits. It needs a man who moves, imperfectly, boldly, with fire in his chest and nothing to prove. So here's your mirror, unfiltered, unedited, brutal. Everything you want is waiting on the other side of one decision to stop waiting. Right now, in the comments, type, "I release the mask." Then type it again. Because repetition is ritual. And today, we're not just watching videos, we're initiating a new identity. One the system fears, one the shadow honors, one that never bows again. Good. You typed it. Twice. And that wasn't just a comment, that was a blood oath. A signal to the unconscious that you're done negotiating with your fear. You've crossed a line now, and nothing will ever feel the same. That tension in your chest, that's not anxiety. That's the tectonic plates of your identity shifting under the weight of truth. You've just broken a spell. The one cast by every teacher, every boss, every voice that told you to wait your turn, be more prepared, polish it more. That voice is dying, and something far older is waking up. The warrior, the initiate, the creator. And he doesn't care about being liked. He doesn't care about being perfect. He cares about being real. Carl Jung knew this path wasn't clean. It was sacred. He understood that integrating the shadow meant not just meeting your darkness, but claiming your forgotten power. And that power isn't sweet. It doesn't ask for approval. It demands expression. It knocks on your door not with a whisper, but with a sledgehammer. And now, it's here. Right now. Watching you. And you feel it, don't you? That quiet voice that says, if you really wanted it, you'd already be doing it. That's not shame. That's your potential trying to break through the prison bars of perfection. That's the part of you that's sick of waiting, sick of explaining, sick of pretending to be almost there. You are there. You've always been there. The only thing missing was permission. And now, you've given it. Not from some guru, not from some course, from yourself. That's the pivot. That's where the descent stops feeling like falling and starts to feel like flying. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. But only if you keep moving. Because the shadow doesn't care about what you know. It only respects what you do. So the question now is simple. What will you do today that terrifies your perfectionism? One small action, one imperfect move, one public step into your next life. Don't overthink it, don't rehearse, just strike. And don't look back. Perfectionism will scream now. It will claw at your mind, beg you to reconsider, to delay, to tweak, to just wait until tomorrow. That voice, the one telling you to pause until you feel certain, is the voice of death. Death of momentum, death of expression, death of the man you were born to become. Jung called this inner resistance the guardian at the threshold. It appears every time you're about to level up, every time you're close to reclaiming your shadow's power. And it doesn't attack with brute force, it seduces. It whispers, "You're not ready. This isn't good enough, you should fix a few more things first." But what it's really saying is, stay small, stay safe, stay invisible. And if you obey it, you feed the mask, you reinforce the lie that the world will end if you show up as you are. But let me tell you something dangerous. The world won't end. Your old self will. And that's the point. Something has to die for something greater to live. This is the core of every transformation. You don't step into your power by being better. You step into it by letting the weaker version of you burn. By doing the thing your fear says will destroy you, and realizing it sets you free. Look around. Most men never do this. They choose polish over presence. They choose delay over danger. And they die waiting. With hard drives full of unfinished books, businesses that never launched, love they never dared to claim. Don't let that be you. Today the mask is cracking. Your shadow is awake, and you've already begun. Don't you dare retreat now. Let it tremble. Let it ache. That's the sound of the old identity breaking. You're not here to be pristine, you're here to be powerful, not perfect, true. And truth doesn't apologize. So take that idea, that message, that move you've been postponing, and do it now. Not when it's flawless, when it's real. Because every second you hesitate, you're choosing to betray yourself. And you've done that long enough. No more. Now, we begin the reckoning. This is where most men turn back. Right here, right at the edge. Because what's coming isn't a pep talk. It's a crucifixion. Not of your body, but of your false identity. The version of you that lived to impress. The version that crafted clever excuses and called it caution. The one that wore perfection like armor to hide the fact that he was terrified of his own reflection. Jung said the unconscious demands balance. And what you've repressed must one day surface. You've repressed your power, your wildness, your clarity. And now the bill has come due. You feel it, don't you? The pressure in your chest, the weight behind your eyes. That's not burnout, it's backlog. A spiritual and psychological backlog of truths unspoken, risks untaken, brilliance unexpressed. And your nervous system is drowning in it. That's why you can't sleep. That's why you overthink. That's why nothing feels like enough. Because you weren't meant to edit your way through life. You were meant to roar, to move. That polite little prison is killing the part of you that was sent here to change things. You want to know the darkest truth? No one's coming to rescue you. No teacher, no mentor, no algorithm, no external force can give you permission to become who you are. Only you. And that's why it's so terrifying. Because stepping into your power means stepping into isolation. At first, you'll lose people. You'll confuse people. You might even disgust people. But you will find yourself. And that trade, that's the only one that matters. So here's the fire. If today was the last day you had to speak your truth, would you still be editing? Would you still be polishing your masterpiece behind the scenes? Or would you finally walk onto the stage of your life and let it rip? Because it's never been about perfection. It's been about fear. And now it's about choice. You've seen the door. The question is, will you walk through it? Or will you decorate the hallway a little longer?